In 1979, a film was released that was so horrifying that one might say it took over the bodies of its audience from the inside out.
My reaction was right with them. It was a wave. We were like a tidal wave building up and crashing on the shore with apprehension.
People were getting up and leaving the theater and going out and barfing in the lobby.
In fact, there was one of the ushers fainted. They're all, they were worried about violence in the theaters.
At one scene where that thing comes out of the stomach, I tell you, it really messed up our bathrooms.
They found it, deeply Freudianly disturbing.
That film was Alien, and it was destined to become one of the most iconic horror films of all time. So iconic that it's hard to believe that it was almost a complete failure.
And they insisted the day we just arrived that afternoon, that they wanted to run it that night. And it ran terribly, because the sound was so bad in there.
Then we had one in St. Louis where the sound wasn't quite right, and that was okay.
Ridley went crazy because he went down and checked the theater before the screening, and 2 of the speakers were out, and then he didn't want to screen the picture.
But we were all quite worried after the one in St. Louis. And then in Dallas, the next night, we had the sound absolutely right in the theater.
The sound was great. It was the most incredible preview I've ever been in. I mean, people were screaming and running out of the theater.
This serves to illustrate an important point. Sound is absolutely crucial when it comes to gripping the audience. All of the other factors of the film, be they ever so brilliant or horrifying, fall flat without sound. No matter how terrifying the design of the alien, or how revolting its gestation, none of it works if the sound isn't working. A point made by none other than the film's own editor.
When you look at the first cut of a film like Alien, you've really got to use your imagination, because there's no sound, for one thing. Lots of those scenes were shot with all these noisy machines or effects working on the stages. So you used to run all these things silent. You sit there and look at him creeping around in the rain room silent, and it's boring. So it's like all those things, creeping around corridors with nothing happening. But when you got the music effects and everything.
The scene is far more terrifying with the sound effects. The clink of the chains and the drops of water. Noises that under normal circumstances we probably wouldn't even hear, falling into the background of our perception. But when they are amplified like this, we seem to enter the heightened awareness of the prey. Keep in mind, this is just moments before we see the fully grown alien for the first time. So far, we've only seen the little baby alien, and for all we know, we are hunting down a small cat-like creature. Yet because of the sound, we are frightened, without knowing exactly what we should be frightened of. Thanks to the sound design, we are already in dread of the monster, without even knowing what the monster is. It's often said that Alien is so frightening because we never fully see the alien, not until the end. And because we do not know completely what it is, our imagination runs wild, and we are consistently in dread of what it might be. It is what we do not see that paralyzes us. And this is why sound is so important, a fact that is often underappreciated. If it is true that we are afraid of what we cannot fully see, then it is equally true that we are afraid of what we hear, but cannot fully see. We are more afraid of a howl in the night than the sight of a wolf. We are more afraid of the sound of footsteps behind us, and the rustling in the brush on every side, than a person that we can see in the daylight. The moment I see something, it at least becomes comprehensible, even if it is still a threat. But as long as I cannot see it, I do not know what it is, and it could be anything. And practically speaking, it is infinite. It is limitless in my imagination and my fear. You hear it getting closer and closer, and the moment it finally leaps into view, it is too late. Audio is crucial for things like jump scares, of which there are a few in Alien. Without an effective change in sound, the sudden change in what we are seeing just wouldn't make us jump. At least, not very much. And jump scares exploit our naturally inbuilt instincts to react to sudden loud noises. And because of this, jump scares are generally seen as gimmicks. You fooled me once, but now that I know to expect it...
Fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Thankfully, Alien generally uses jump scares only when they are logically necessary, in a way that adds to the story, opting rather to use sound in a more primal way, down more deeply into the chest. A recurring auditory motif heard throughout the film is a kind of rhythmic repetition of a certain sound. In Mother's womb, for example, there's a breathy sound, like someone or something breathing.
Morning, Mother.
During the chest burster sequence, the mood is set almost subliminally by a low thrumming.
Maybe rubbing record.
That's it. Coconuts.
The first thing that I'm going to do when I get back is to get some decent food.
Is this supposed to be the mechanics of the ship, or the beating of a heart? We ask the same question again, with Brett in the cargo hold.
You hear the sound, which may be a very, very pulled-back heartbeat, and the skin, the discarded skin, like a snake would discard its skin. And there you have the pulse of something, which may be of something.
It's a powerful device, and not an uncommon one. Assailing our ears with heartbeat-like sounds has the effect of making us feel like the prey, because, by and large, the only heart we can hear like this without the aid of an instrument is our own. It must be my heart that is beating wildly, and I didn't even know it. We are the ones in danger. Interestingly, instead of using actual heartbeats, Alien uses mechanical sounds that mimic the pattern of breathing and beating hearts, further reinforcing one of the visual motifs of Alien, the synthesis of organic life with machine. The derelict alien ship on LV-426 feels to be the inside of a great sea creature. The space jockey seems to grow out of the chair in which it sits. The Nostromo's central computer is known as Mother. The android Ash is a machine draped in human facade. Even the alien itself seems partly mechanical. And this synthesis carries over into the sounds.
When you see the film with a proper mix and big sound, you can hear a lot of very subtle sounds all the time. They're always there. So they're working on your paranoia. And I think these atmospherics are terribly important. This is not score, this is just uneasy, almost organic sounds that make you feel uncomfortable. And you don't know what it is. Is it a system of air conditioning? Is it the sound of the ship?
I can't help but wonder if it isn't this synthesis of the organic with the mechanical that is so unsettling. The ticking rhythm of a machine, mimicking the beating rhythm of the human autonomic nervous system, so very like us, yet steady and unchanging. Stripped of volition, of will, of choice, reduced to clockwork responses and instincts, until finally being stripped of all selfhood and individuality, we are made into objects for propagation. It is not the striking of a great clock that heralds our destruction in Alien, but the analogous patterns of the Nostromo's alarms, signaling the impending self-destruction of the ship.
The emergency destruct system is...
The inherent correlation of sirens with danger do the work of terror for us, bombarding us, upping the urgency and the stakes. If we play this scene without the sound, perhaps replacing it with the sound from 2001: A Space Odyssey, the suspense isn't nearly so agonizing.
I can feel it. I can feel it. I can feel it.
When the original sound is added, this scene in many ways becomes the perfect auditory climax of the film. For all of the auditory motifs of the film, which have built up to this logical point, are present in this sequence. There's a ticking that matches the tempo, if not the sound, of a racing heartbeat. And the final alarm is eerily reminiscent of the binary lub-dub of a single heartbeat.
I've turned the cooling unit back on!
All reminding us of the heartbeat sounds that came before. And there's also the panicked grunting and screaming of Ripley, recalling the screams that we heard before. And while it's easy to ignore how important screaming is, since screaming is such a ubiquitous horror trope, it's still worth pointing out the unique way in which Alien uses the screams of its victims. Instead of showing us what is happening to people as they fall prey to the alien, the camera generally cuts away, and we are informed about their fate mainly by their dying screams.
Get out of the way, man! It's gonna kill us! Driver, for Christ's sake, get out of the way!
A powerful device that Ridley Scott may or may not have forgotten in his later films. Ripley's cries are drowned in a consistent, overwhelming loudness, as the ship seems to come apart at the seams. An overwhelming din that is reminiscent of the storm on LV-426. We reach the apex of volume when the Nostromo finally explodes. Then silence. While it's fairly obvious that sudden loud noises produce fear, it's interesting that sudden silence can also confound the imagination, as Edmund Burke says. Alien uses this effect again and again. After Dallas is taken, silence, whispering. After Brett dies, silence. The computer from the opening scene comes to life out of the silence, beeps and whirs haphazardly. And then, silence. I can't help but point out that all of these devices were used not just in the film, but also to great effect in the original trailer for Alien. There's crashing, rushing, heartbeat-like ticking, a scream-like siren, growing loudness, uproarious din. And then, silence. I pointed out, if for no other reason than to demonstrate that the principles which made Alien and its trailer effective seem to have been forgotten in later films. The subsequent Alien films, with the exception of Cameron's sequel, all fail, in part, I think, because they don't respect the importance of sound. They don't craft their storytelling around the ear, which is a shame. If you saw my video on Master and Commander, you know how important I think sound editing is. In film, sound is crucial for creating a story and a world that exceeds the boundaries of the two-dimensional representation on screen. The things we hear tell us there is far more going on, far more that is existing and living and breathing than we can see. A whole world outside the aspect ratio. A world that goes so far as to invade our world, because sound waves occupy our three-dimensional space in ways that the projected image simply can't. Sound is untamed. It vibrates around us, changing the air we occupy and making our world a world of wonder or of cosmic horror.